Doug, again, appreciate the time. Let's continue. We'll talk Browns, and let's talk about roster. There's one area that jumps out that needs to be improved, the offensive line. The question is, you probably need two. Well, now you really need two tackles after Greg Robinson headed down to Mexico there. Do you do one in the draft, one in free agency? You probably don't want two rookies at your two tackle positions.
I think you do it all, right? I mean, I don't know that you can just get two. I think you might need to get three to make sure you have two. The tackle class in free agency isn't great. It's such a desperate need for them. There's a little part of me that is wary of overspending in desperation on the free agent market. Do you ideally want two rookie tackles? Maybe not, but it's awful. Like it is malfeasant what John Dorsey did to that offensive line last year. All going into last year, we thought the line, if they're not going to be great, but if they're okay, is that enough? And you just saw how it just blew a hole in everything they did, that they didn't believe and couldn't rely on that offensive line. So whatever Greg Robinson did, they needed to replace him anyway. They need to replace Chris Hubbard. So I hope they have to take a tackle at number 10 in the draft. There is not somebody fell it. You have to take a tackle. It is not best player available at 10 for them. It is best tackle available that you insert in the starting lineup, and that's one solution. The second solution might be your second round pick. It might be something, but John Dorsey spent a lot of money on Chris Hubbard coming off a year where he'd been the sixth lineman in Pittsburgh. There was an injury. He became a starter for half a season and looked pretty good, and they gave him a big contract to be a starter, and he was not good here. He was not good for 2 years. So I don't want them to do the next version of that, trying to maybe this guy seems okay, let's throw a ton of money at him. So maybe it has to be two rookies, but that is such a priority. It's so obvious. But even though it's obvious, I mean, I think it's even more of a priority than people realize, because if you don't have tackles you believe in, Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, Nick Chubb, David Njoku, Jarvis Landry, all those guys don't matter that much because your tackles stink.
So say the hybrid linebacker safety Simmons falls to 10. You're passing on him.
No, because here's the thing, and I get best player available. You're not trying to pick a Pro Bowl, and this sounds crazy, but for instance, Joe Thomas was a Hall of Famer here for a decade, but they never won with him because he was really good at his job, but he alone in his job couldn't make them a playoff team. I know there are great players out there, but it's not 100% about getting the best player. It's about getting the player that makes this team the best. And this team is trying to win right now. And if they don't get two tackles who can play, you're going to see a lot of the repeat of what happened last year. So I don't care who falls. If they don't take a tackle at 10, it's a mistake.
Do you think the offensive line, now they went out and they hired Bill Callahan, it's a pretty good offensive line coach with a long history, who was a former head coach as well. Does that help the group?
I don't mean to. They hired James Campen last year from Green Bay. People wanted to have a parade for him. He's a great offensive line coach. It's such an upgrade over that guy who was here before who said the hut stuff. James Campen had a long resume. He couldn't make Eric Kush, Chris Hubbard, and Greg Robinson into a good offensive line. Nobody could fix Austin Corbett, the worst draft pick, one of the worst draft picks in Browns history. So, again, they had a good offensive line coach, and they didn't have a good offensive line. So it's about players, and so it's so far above, to me, anything else on the list. Tackle is up here off the top of the screen, and guys who can help your defense are down here. So, yeah, great. Bill Callahan can coach offensive line. He needs good players to coach.